Today we'll be looking at the Canadian retirement lies that some Canadians believe to be true. Over our many years working in the Canadian retirement space, we've seen countless retirees make costly mistakes because of outdated or incorrect beliefs about the Canadian retirement system. That's exactly why we're making this video today, to expose the most damaging retirement lies that many Canadians still believe, from CPP misconceptions to RSP withdrawal strategies. We'll break down each of these myths, explain why they're wrong for the Canadian market, and show you what you need to be actually doing with your retirement planning. Let's get into the video.
Okay, so let's start with the first lie, and that is, I don't need to save for retirement because CPP and OAS will cover all of my retirement expenses. Well, when I hear that, I think, is that person just being irresponsible, not wanting to save money and delay gratification? When we've talked about it in other videos, CPP, if you're eligible for maximum, is approximately $15,000. OAS, if you're eligible for maximum, is approximately $7,000. So you're looking at about $22,000, $22,500 in retirement income before tax.
Yeah.
Now, realizing that the tax rate at that amount is very low, you're still paying probably 10% in tax. That's only about $18,000, $19,000 in net income. Between housing costs, groceries, just everyday living, I don't know many Canadians that can afford to live on approximately $19,000 a year in expenses.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a good help. It's a great baseline. It's a good start for your retirement income. But there's got to be other sources. We talk about it often, whether it be coming from your employer and coming from a pension, or if you don't have that luxury, you have to do it yourself in the form of an RSP, TFSA, whatever it might be, in order to get you that additional income you need in retirement. And that's actually an excellent segue for us into the next lie that a lot of Canadians do believe, and that's that retirement savings plans, or RRSPs, are always going to be better than tax-free savings accounts when it comes to your retirement income. Now, that's not necessarily true. For some people, it may be the case. And for those Canadians, it's going to be those that are higher income earners. Higher income earners are going to benefit much more from an RSP because contributions to the RSP are going to be tax deductible. So let's assume you're making upwards of $150,000 a year and your tax bracket is pushing into the mid to high 40s, then you're going to be saving 40+% on every contribution you make. And the assumption is you're not going to be earning that same degree of income in retirement. So if you're saving 40% on your contributions now and paying 20% later, that's the real benefit of what an RSP does. Now, not all Canadians are going to be in that scenario. If you're a Canadian that's earning close to the 20% marginal tax bracket or 25% marginal tax bracket, a TFSA might be a good option for you as well. Putting money into a tax-free savings account isn't going to give you that deduction today, but that means you're not going to be taxed on it in future years. And even if you are one of those high-income earners within Canada, utilizing a TFSA might provide you that additional source of retirement income that's not going to be taxable. Let's say you have a vacation coming up or a random expense is going to occur. To not push you into a higher marginal tax bracket, you can just draw on your TFSAs, and it's a good way to access some free or tax-free income.
John, these are all great points. And that's why you should be speaking with a planner when trying to determine which kind of account to contribute into, because everybody's situation is different. Yep. Where you get the main benefit contributing into an RSP is if your income is high, your tax rate is high, but when you pull out, your tax rate will be low. Well, what about the Canadians who are fortunate to have a defined benefit pension plan? Yep. Already they're going to have higher income than Canadians without a pension plan. So you could be putting money in your RSP at 40%, but because of this defined benefit plan, you could be pulling out at 40%. So there's no net benefit given, but there is still a tax portion to it. Whereas if you're funding your TFSA, pulling money out, no tax implication. Now, we can only cover this lie in a small amount of detail in this video because we have to move on to the next one. But we're going to break this down in far more detail in another video in a few weeks' time. So to make sure you don't miss out, click the subscribe button now. If you want extra help planning your retirement, click the first link in the description, where our team and I will review your exact situation and help you develop a game plan. The third lie that we often hear is, I'm going to sell my home. That's my retirement income source. So with downsizing, we often hear it. Clients aren't necessarily saving as much as they can because the intention is sell the home and have the sale proceeds become your retirement savings or retirement income. Well, what happens when you sell your home? Where are you living? There are going to be costs to have accommodations, whether you are selling your home, taking some of the proceeds and buying another property, or if you are selling your home, taking the proceeds and renting, or living in a retirement facility. You have to live somewhere, and there are going to be increased expenses to accommodate that. And you want to have a plan in place to determine, is this feasible for me? what we've also found is when parents sell their home and are looking to downsize and have retirement income, it's at that point where they think about gifting assets or gifting funds to their children to see them be able to enjoy it instead of having it go to them through their will. But they're not considering that when they've not saved into RSPs or not built up another investment account to live on. So what they're thinking they're going to receive from selling their house, in most cases, is lower than what they expect.
That's exactly it. And I mean, we can kind of answer all these lies with creating a plan to work for you. But, having the assumption that no savings need to be required because you're paying into your home. And this is becoming pretty frequent nowadays, especially in the Greater Toronto area and even some places out in BC, just because housing prices are so expensive. Every dollar is going into that mortgage or going into the house, and less is going to be set aside for savings, which we want to have a fair or equal balance between the two. And that leads us into our next lie that a lot of Canadians believe, and that is that your retirement expenses are actually going to decrease as you age. While that may be true for the some and the fortunate that are able to maintain good health over that period of time, what we have run into is those retirees that have developed health issues actually have an increase of retirement expenses. Cost of healthcare nowadays is not very cheap. We do have a free healthcare system within Canada, but not everything is going to be covered. So if you do require additional assistance in the home, having an extra helping hand around the house, or even, let's say, if mobility becomes an issue and having to hire different people to help around the house, these can all become very expensive endeavors to take on when you're in retirement. So what we usually advise is you try to keep or plan for that retirement expense to remain elevated. If you're maybe not going on trips when you're in your 80s, you're probably going to be spending that money in other ways just to help you around the house. So you need to be really realistic when it comes to your retirement expenses.
Absolutely. Life throws you curveballs.
Yep.
Not only may your health fail, but maybe your children. They require expenses where they don't have the means to cover these extraordinary expenses. Well, they're looking to mom and dad to help out. And obviously, as parents, we want to help our children out as much as possible. That's something that may not be planned for or can't be planned for, but something that could be an increased expense in retirement. And the last lie that we've often heard about, and it was a great marketing program probably 20 years ago, and that was Freedom 55. Now, what was Freedom 55? That was a marketing slogan from a retirement company discussing how they could help Canadians retire at that ripe young age of 55. If they did the right things, planning and saving, that they would be able to retire at 55 and have, if life expectancy is in Canada is 85 to 90, that's 35 years of good living. Well, I think from what we've seen with increased inflation, increased expenses, that retiring at 55 is a very difficult thing to do. If you start working at age 20, that's 35 years of savings in order to provide 35 years or 40 years of living expenses. That's very difficult to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes very difficult just because of that point you just made, where Canadians are living much longer. We've now come to see a lot of our clients pushing into their late 90s, we have a couple clients in their early hundreds. So that is a very long time to be retired, and for that amount of money to be able to fund you that lifestyle, it's a very difficult thing to do. Not saying it's impossible, but to have the expectation that that's what every Canadian should be striving for, let's be honest, it's a little bit unrealistic. Now that you know the retirement lies Canadians keep falling for, you need to understand one thing. This is truly the tip of the iceberg. You can't walk away from this video thinking you're safe just because you know these common lies. There's so much more that goes into securing a good retirement. If you want to learn the real strategies that successful Canadian retirees are using right now, click the link in the description.